Let's talk about Taiwan's civil defense and Ukraine's territorial defense forces are actually very different, but hard to distinguish for the Taiwanese general public. And what are the similarities, especially what can Taiwan learn from Ukraine's experience, both mentally and military, how to defend for ourselves, for Taiwanese people. So today we're really honored to welcome both our guests, Hannah and Maria, to join us. Thank you. Welcome both. And Hannah is the co-founder of the International Center for Ukrainian Victory, and Maria is the East Asian Office Representative and the Liberal Democratic League of Ukraine. So both very inspiring women. And today I'll first ask about both what you're doing for defending Ukraine, because like for Taiwanese people, we're very willing to understand about Ukraine, but we have limited knowledge on many aspects. So we'll start with Hannah.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be in Taiwan again. This is my second time to express my gratitude to your people, to your president, and to share our knowledge. So back in 2013, when we went to Maidan, the main square in the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv, to protest against the former president's decision not to be part of European family, but to return back to Russian sphere of influence. So this is how the Revolution of Dignity started in 2013. And can you imagine then, Russia invaded Ukraine with the attempted illegal annexation 2014. Why I'm telling this? Because at that time my role was as a civic activist to protest against the decision of the leadership of our country, which was acting in the interest of the enemy. So it's really important in Taiwan actually to be very careful observing what your politicians are doing. They need to serve Taiwanese interest. This is the key. Second, when Russia invaded Ukraine, we were also preparing our ecosystem, how to do this. But in 2014, it was different, and my position at that time was the chairwoman of the Foreign Relations Committee. For 5 years, I served my country, mobilizing the whole world, international organizations, different parliaments, with their resolutions to recognize Russian act as aggressor, also to impose sanctions, and to bring more weapons to Ukraine. After the full-scale war, which is a genocide, because the war crimes against humanity, ecocide, forceful deportation of kids, it's all about Russian goal to destroy Ukrainian nation if we don't want to be considered as Russians. So we have different identity, culture, history, and language. So this is why I think it's really important not to allow your potential enemy to use religious organizations, politicians, also culture, propaganda or different media for prepare the ground, because there were also many people in Ukraine not believing that Russia attack or will send bombs to the whole cities. Yes, so this is, I played an important role in explaining society with this centuries of war from Russian side on Ukraine. So we are working on also documenting the war crimes to prepare the ground for tribunal, and another campaign, it's Make Russia Pay, confiscation of Russian sovereign assets. But it's all around the idea of victory of Ukraine. This is why I want to share here. So when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014, we had no enough support. And within this period of almost 8 years, we were under pressure, only peaceful settlement. Don't ask little weapon. So this was a mistake, because if you know that your neighbor is like act like empire, they need more territories of sovereign nations to grow. So this is why you also have to be very careful with your neighbors. And in our situation, within the 10 years, it's not Russia alone now anymore. It's Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Belarus, which are supplying the aggressor state with munitions, with ballistic missiles, with chips, with machinery, with different type of military aid. So I think it's really important for Taiwan to understand that China has this ambition to rule the world. And together with Russia and others, they want to shape a new world order. And this is why we are also here to talk to your citizens that you should be prepared, also your morale, not allow fear or panic. No, the more you prepared and you have basic education how to do this, the less chances for aggressor, because they will understand that here you have a resilient society, you have all the infrastructure for resistance, you have your media not working for the favor of your enemy, and you have your political class which built this communication with your society. As your president said, Taiwan is Taiwan. China is China. So your sovereignty mentioned, and actually I think your parliament, president, your government, your civil society, your social institutions, they should work together and actually prepare for potential attacks. This will secure and make you more how to say, more ready to...
More prepared.
Yes, more prepared.
You just mentioned about like raising awareness. I think Ukraine is doing a great job even before the war. And as you said, you did a lot of preparations to ask people, civilians, to be prepared of the upcoming things that Taiwan, I don't think it's not as prepared in comparison. So I think we'll delve into that later about it as well. But first, I will also ask Maria about what's your main position, your work in defending for Ukraine.
I started I want to start with that fact that I was born in the east of Ukraine, where I was started back in 2014, and my city was under occupation when I was a schoolgirl for several months. And after this, I started to raise my awarenesses about how Russia dangerous is for Ukraine, for our nation, and started to understand how close I connected to my country and to my roots. And after this, I decided, first of all, to join the promotion of reform in Ukraine, and I started this with decentralization reform that provides our local governments more power to decide, to make a decision on local level in their communities. But when full-scale invasion started, I joined groups for analyzing propaganda and combating propaganda in the Ukraine and in the world. And it's interesting also topic for Taiwan, because that time we had close cooperation between government, state and civil society, because I have never been involved in military issues, but I was helping people who protect our country in the field that where I have expertise. And here I can see that you have lack of such cooperation, direct cooperation between society and between government. It's this trend that need to be, that you have to change as soon as possible to achieve efficiency. Here you can see lack of preparedness, like moral preparedness and physical preparedness of people. And this was also our mistake back in the time 10 years ago. So, and even sometimes before full-scale invasion, some people try to deny this thought that potential invasion can happen, even though that we had war during 8 years that time. And that is why I try to convince people here in Taiwan that it's the war and the China threat. This is not something where you can keep positive minds. It's better to be prepared to the wars, just to be ready to fight, to struggle against this attack that can be in the future in your country.
Definitely. I think you have a really great point that you compared about Ukraine and Taiwan. The great difference, I think, is that, as you just mentioned, Taiwanese people are more like positive ignorant of what possibly invasion would be. Like most people are like, it probably won't happen, so let's just live our lives as it ordinary is. And I probably, like a lot of Ukrainians, has the same mentality, not as much as Taiwanese people, but some, like you just mentioned. But we can see that when the full-scale invasion happened, a lot of Ukrainians, civilians, they volunteered to join the front lines, and they're prepared mentally, physically, and it's very inspiring. Like their passion, their love toward the country, it's higher than the individual themselves. And how did Ukraine manage to be able to not educate, but to prepare everyone, have the same mentality, to be on the same page for the country? I think it's very, very hard to maintain that kind of achievement. So I'd like to ask, how can Taiwan learn from this experience? Hannah.
In the time of digital era, it's very important to share information, which we did, and also I think fighting spirit of Ukrainians, it's a part of our DNA, and it's also a spiritual thing. Because Ukraine is well known in the world as a breadbasket of Europe, providing we are belong to five the biggest exporter of food. But I think Ukraine should be recognized as a spiritual basket of the world, because spirit matters. Fighting spirit is so crucial when you, as a part of society, individuals belonging to communities, to local communities. Communities belong to different, more regional and regional to national ones. It's like a one national team fighting for our future. So when you feel this belongingness to your nation, belongingness, then you have this tradition of fight, and you have this which unite you, this vision for the future. When you understand that victory matters, that never again the aggressor will attack you. So this is why defeat of Russia, military defeat, it's become a common goal. When you donate your money, when you support your friends who join the armed forces, when you mobilize international community, when you take care about those who wounded, veterans, families who lost defenders. So it's really important to understand responsibility. It's not like say, okay, this is government should take responsibility. No, it's a common thing to fight for better future for your nation, and not to allow enemy to dictate how you as a nation should do, or they don't need not to allow anyone from abroad to decide the future.
Common awareness and the government's attitude, it should be combined. It should be on the same line. It should be on the same page. And I think that, do you think that, for example, do you think, Maria, as you've been spending some time in Taiwan and you will be spending more time in Taiwan, do you think that is something that the Taiwan situation is at, or do you think that it's actually something that you think Taiwan should work on?
I hope that I'm mistaken right now, but I can see some separation of civil initiatives and government initiatives, and this is a bad sign for Taiwan, because it needs to be changed. And for example, we mentioned civil defense trainings. The civil defense training, this is fully private and civil initiatives, but government doesn't play a role in this, and this is bad, because on the government level, you have to understand how you can rapidly involve these people who were trained to protect the country to real protection. If without such mechanism, these people will remain just prepared, trained civilians who will not be able to protect the country, who will not be able to use weapon and to have this access to uniform, equipment, etc. So this is just one point, because in Ukraine, civil defense forces, they played and still play a significant role in our defense. And as I told, like just during first weeks of full-scale invasion, more than 300,000 people joined territorial defense forces, and they helped to protect our country and stopped Russians from occupying a larger part of territory, because this territory that Russians could manage to occupy why this is not something that they wanted to do. They wanted to have all country. And without a lot of weapons, that time without so much support from our partners, we managed to do this. People with bare arm try to stop the tanks. And sometimes they did it. And this is about our spirit, about something that Hanna mentioned. And I also want to add something about our motivation. We have no other home. Now I am living in Taiwan, and I love this country with all my heart, but my home, this is Ukraine. Despite that fact that Russians destroyed my apartment, my hometown, all Ukraine, this is my home. And it doesn't matter where I am, I always feel at home. So we fully aware that if we stop fighting, we will be occupied or imprisoned for decades, like it was after Soviet Union occupation. This wasn't voluntary unification that time back in 1920s, last centuries. This was occupation of our country. And Hanna also mentioned all repressions that we lived through, and Taiwanese people probably can imagine this because of white terror experience. And all will be just killed. And both of these options are not suitable for us. So that is why we are fighting on any other field that we can reach, and we do anything what in our power just to achieve the main goal. This is victory.
Maria just mentioned that, people actually, they do not have weapons. They stand in front of the tank bare hands because they want to defend for their nation. I think Ukraine is doing such a great job in defending itself for such a long time that kind of like international society forgot about, not entirely, but pivoting the focus more to the Israel and Hamas conflict. And how can we raise more awareness of that, people remembering that Ukraine needs more international supports? What kind of supports, resources do they need? Hanna.
So it's a very important question, because without victory in Ukraine, this would be a message to axis of evil authoritarian states that, look, now you could attack another country and you will not be punished. So this is why Russian military defeat is important as a deterrence, as a prevention of new wars. Because what they are doing, they try to chaotize the planet, actually creating a new war zones, a new theaters, or actually intensifying the old conflicts. So we've seen, you mentioned Middle East. That could be something in Europe, in Balkans, or in Latin America around Venezuela and others. So when the attention of global leadership will be refocused. So this is one of the goal when you do not concentrate on something which is important and allow many battlefields. And then you succeed nowhere, which is also in 2014, if Ukraine were received everything needed, we could stop Russia. We could not allow Russia to extend to the level when now Russia received everything from North Korea, from China and others. So this is the weaknesses provokes more aggressive behavior. So this is the key lessons we have to learn. We now try to explain our international partners, victory in Ukraine, this is your deterrence strategy. So it's cheaper to help Ukraine to defeat Russian imperialism than to have global war with all these authoritarian states which are learning from the war, because Ukraine is now using artificial intelligence in producing drones. So it's robots already in the battlefield. So innovations matter. So this is how Taiwan could even much in larger scale partnering with Ukraine, where we could exchange our know-how with your technologies you have already. We know that you want to become an Asian hub of UAVs here and being a part of a supply chain, which is where we could share our experience. We have to be 2 steps ahead of the enemies, because this is the war of technologies. And Ukraine has these technologies. Ukraine has critical raw materials, which is strategically important for new industries, and especially military and defense sector. So we have to be, how to say, more united, act proactively, I would say, and actually understand that they will not stop. Their goal is very clear. For those who still naively believe that somehow you could send the message, and sanctions matters, because sanctions after the full-scale war, it's important, but it's too late as a diplomatic leverage. So we need to use some instruments before, like sending a clear signal. So China should be under more sanctions for supporting and supplying Russia with military stuff. This would be the powerful message.
Yes, you just mentioned that you have to be 2 steps ahead of your enemy, because, like you just mentioned, that the support and the sanction from the international society, there were support, there were sanctions, but it's too late. Too late because that Russia actually has time to enlarge themselves, to have other allies to support.
Adjust their banking system.
Yes,
everything.
And therefore making Ukraine harder to defend itself. And for that, I'd like to ask about, Maria, like you mentioned about your work in the propaganda. So in Ukraine, but also outside for internationally, how are you raising voices? How are you raising awareness? How do you advocate international society to support Ukraine?
I want to start with the beginning, because in my strong opinion, now every single Ukrainian abroad can perform advocacy work for Ukraine. Doesn't matter who you are, where do you work, are you working in a supermarket or in embassy, your surroundings, have opportunity to know about Ukraine from your words. So that is why we are trying to unite people also abroad in different countries. And I used to live in Europe after full-scale invasion started for a while, and I can say that even people who didn't know each other before full-scale invasion, they just met and started to work to promote Ukraine, because we are doing this work, and foreigners have been learning about Ukraine from our vision finally, because before full-scale invasion, according to my estimation, we didn't pay enough attention to fighting propaganda abroad. And that is why Russia had the opportunity to spread these harmful narratives against Ukraine worldwide. And as a result, one of the results of such ignorance of this important theme, we had before full-scale invasion 5,000 of hamlets as an aid. And this is nothing. This is ridiculous if you are facing such a huge threat as 100,000 of Russian soldiers on your borders. So even now, when we achieved a lot of results in this field, not perfect, but still a lot, we are working on it. I can sometimes hear how our supporters, foreigners, unconsciously broadcast some old Russian narratives, and I can blame them, because they have been growing with these narratives and we didn't pay enough attention on it. And this is one point that I also want to share with Taiwanese people, that you have to care about your informational security, not only in Taiwan, but also abroad, because on your work in this field abroad depends the level of your support, because propaganda, harmful for propaganda, they influence not on the state, not on the decision makers who can analyze deeply information, in-depth information from the fields, but on the society level with more emotional narratives. And if society of these countries will stop to support you, then this support will reduce on the state level.
And if I may to add, because economy matters. And I remember 2013, before the Russian tanks arrived in Ukrainian territories. So Russia started its hybrid war against Ukraine from blocking our agriculture and milk products to their access to the Russian market. Ukraine depended at that time so much from Russian market, where we sold many products, machinery, agriculture, food, and others. So in 2013, so we were when we had no good contacts in the European Union, because they have different standards. So and they used this dependence on Russian market as a blackmail on us. So this is how the hybrid warfare started. So this is why I think Taiwan needs now to decrease the dependence on Chinese market. Start thinking about selling your products like pineapples to Ukraine. We are ready to be a promoter of freedom, pineapples and also other products. And Ukraine could sell here potatoes or other grain and others. So this is, I think, because if your economy, and it's also part of resistance, will face problems, then many people also might leave country, or some companies will be closing and others, because China will close the market and you will not have like easily to prepare the reorientation to other markets. So don't allow economic leverages to be used against you in the future. So
preparation is definitely the key word of the discussion today. And thank you so much for sharing both your expertise. I'm sure our audience learned a lot from what you just shared. Thank you.